Good afternoon. It is the Ask Dr. Renee show. If you have never watched our show before, the Ask Dr. Renee show is here to motivate and inspire you to live the life you deserve. Because let's face it, this is not a dress rehearsal. You've only got one life to live. You might as well do it well. So I bring wonderful, amazing people whose stories I know that I think motivate and inspire me, and I think that they would motivate and inspire you. So some of our past guests have been Lisa Nichols, Paul Carrick Brunson, Kwame, DJ D Nice, several amazing bloggers. We have people in all sorts of fields. My mom was actually on once. But you can check out all of our old episodes at my YouTube channel, Ask Dr. Renee. And, of course, we just started last week with this new platform, doing them on Facebook Live, and then we'll move them over to YouTube later. But so far, so good. And I hope you enjoyed the show last week. We had Idea Broadbent. Also, I want to make sure that everyone knows, if you've seen my videos, then you already know that I have been telling everybody about Thinks. You can get $10 off with my link. If you stay till the end, you will see the lovely Thinks commercial with me in it. But today, I'm so excited. We have Christine Swanson. So Christine will between the two of us, will say how we met. But she has an amazing story, and she has a really cool job. And I just think that you guys would be motivated and inspired by her. So good afternoon, Christine.
Hi, how are you?
I am fabulous. How are you?
Good.
Great. So let's get into it. First, so the way that Christine and I met, shout out to Erica Watson. Christine came to one of my clients' clinics, and that's how we met. And we found out we had a lot in common. Christine is a Detroiter. So to all the Detroiters who I kept telling you guys to watch today, this is why. So Christine, let's start at the beginning. What did you want to do when you grew up?
I think the earliest memory that I had was to be a television broadcast anchor, and that's it. That's all I kind of thought of, and I really didn't know what that entailed.
Okay. So, like I said, Christine's from Detroit. So my Detroiter, she went to Shrine High School. So, and then of course she went to the wonderful Notre Dame. And so what did you study at Notre Dame, since that's what you wanted to do?
Okay, so I actually started out as an economics major, double majoring in finance.
Oh, that's totally different.
Yeah, and not because I wanted to get into broadcast journalism, but because I thought, coming from Detroit, when you go to college, the goal is to get a good job and make a living.
Well, that sounds about right.
Right. So I thought I would study, like, it was finance, right? And I'm like, oh, I could get a job doing finance. And my first class in the finance major was an economics class. And as I sat in that class, confused, I thought, my goodness, they're speaking Greek, and I don't feel like I'm in the right place. And then my freshman year, Spike Lee came to campus to talk about Do the Right Thing.
Oh, wow.
And listening to him speak, something like was sparked on the inside of me. And I did not know, coming from Detroit, that people made movies for a living. And when I saw Spike Lee, I immediately knew that's what I want to do. So after Spike left, I changed my major to film theory, kept my Japanese major, and that started me on the path of becoming a filmmaker.
So what did your father say?
He said, I asked him, like, what major should I major in? And he was like, what are you asking me for? I didn't go to college. So I was at a total loss for what to do, which is why I chose finance.
Okay.
And then when I switched majors, he didn't care because, as you know, maybe our parents just wanted us to get a good education and live a good life. So the fact that I was at Notre Dame was good enough.
That's awesome. And unfortunately, not everyone is that way. But, you know, because I have in the back of my head some stories of people who were terrified to change their major and had to have a whole sit down. It was a big deal, you know. So, but that's great that he was still behind you.
Absolutely.
So, and I mean, but for Notre Dame now, how many filmmakers come out of Notre Dame, though?
Well, not a lot, and especially in the Midwest. Back then, it wasn't like a film program. It was a very small major, and with a handful of students in it. And even when I was in it, I was really intimidated to study video production because I really didn't understand the technical parts of filmmaking. So I kind of hid in the film theory concentration, but that is really where my love for storytelling started to come alive. And it really was the best avenue for me because I started to understand dissecting stories and imagery and meaning. And lo and behold, I feel like that's the strongest part of being a filmmaker or storyteller.
So, do you, because I know nothing about film, I know what you've taught me and what, my friend Brian's taught me, but not a whole lot. So did you have like internships or something, or? Oh, did you lose me?
No, no, I
Okay.
see you.
Okay.
Okay.
Did you have internships or something?
Um, Not in undergrad. And when I was in grad school at NYU, when I was in film school, I would moonlight as a PA on music videos. So I pretty much worked on the whole Mariah Carey Butterfly album,
Oh,
on all the
neat.
music, yeah, on all the music videos for that, and a lot of Puffy music videos, um, and then I've segued into commercials as a production assistant. So pretty much that means picking up garbage. So that's kind of like the work that I did in between school. But I got to be on set, on production, and you start to do the learning through osmosis very early on, from that capacity or point of view.
So, so to get into NYU Film School, did you just had to apply, or did you have to have a portfolio of some sort? Like, what did you have to
Sure,
do?
sure. So you have to have a portfolio and obviously recommendations. So coming out of NYU, Notre Dame, I since I didn't major in film production per se, I didn't have a creative portfolio that looked like any shorts or visual medium to submit. But the great thing about NYU is you could submit like pottery. If that's your creative portfolio, you could submit that. And I figured out like one of the categories that I think I could submit something in was you could submit photographs. So just before I graduated from Notre Dame, I happened to partake in a program called Semester Around the World, and I brought along my camera, and like in various countries that I visited, I was just taking pictures left and right. So I pulled uh, the the best photographs to me that had poignancy and meaning, and I picked 8 of them, and I submitted that as my creative portfolio. And then you also had to write a short story, not a screenplay, which is great because I'd never written a screenplay at that point. So, and actually, I had never written a short story. So I actually just, I think I bought a book online, like how to write a short story, and I read it, and I just, I just imagined a, a, um, um, a story that I thought would be interesting, and I worked backwards and put it on paper. So that's actually how I work as a director. I see things and I visualize things and I work backwards and put it on paper. And that paper we call a screenplay. So it was very interesting. Like long before I learned the craft of storytelling and filmmaking, I was already utilizing the principles as I was applying to film school.
That is cool. So you get out of NYU. What's your first big job?
So
Well,
when
first
I
job,
grad,
period.
okay. So when I left NYU, my first big job was my first feature film called All About You. So I was able to somehow raise money. Uh, I wrote a script. Like, I mean, I hate saying this because I have students, and I'm like, you can't ever write a screenplay in 2 weeks. I wrote a screenplay in 2 weeks, and put together some money. I moved from my husband and I moved from New York to Los Angeles, and we made a feature movie. And um, the rest is history in the way that we have entered into this industry and still are in it in a sustainable way.
Now, the movie is still on Netflix or no?
The movie's on Amazon Prime.
Amazon Prime.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's called All About You,
Yeah.
starring Renee Elise Goldsberry, who most people may know her from Hamilton. She's a Tony-winning actress who played
I
Angelica
remember her
Houston.
from One Life to Live.
Of course,
Don't
and
talk about
now we're
me.
gonna say that. Yes, no. And she has a rabid fan base from One Life to Live as well. Yeah.
Yeah. So All About You, everyone, Amazon Prime.
Yes.
And then we're gonna go back to the husband thing later.
Sure.
But so you did All About You, and so from there, what happens? How do you start getting all these other projects?
Okay, so that was like my big break, and I was doing it. I made like an independent black film that was supposed to just catapult my career, and on many levels it did, but on a big level it did not, and for reasons known specifically to God, I'm sure, and revealed to me over time. Um, it, I just felt it wasn't my time, and I only can say this in hindsight because I was ready.
Right.
But while I was making the movie, I got pregnant with my first son. And you know how we're raised as women of our generation that we could do it all.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I have to say that I could not find, I couldn't find that black girl magic to figure out how to do it all.
Gotcha.
And it's funny because I had a conversation with an actress, and I told her the story that I couldn't be a mom and a filmmaker. She was like, because all your creativity was going in to create this baby, and that's where you deposited all that creativity. So you couldn't do both, and it's okay because you were creating brilliance within yourself. And this, just maybe a month ago, I just dropped off that 18-year-old to college, and he's currently a freshman at NYU Film School. And so I
Congratulations.
thank you. So I feel like I just had my true full circle moment. And while that was, well, I tell him, I'm like, you derailed my career. However, I would do it all over again for the chance to be your mother.
Oh, that's
So,
wonderful.
it was win-win.
So everyone, Christine has not one but four children. She has
I
three
do.
boys and a girl. So you raised your children,
Not
and
really. I still have a 10-year-old, but go
yes,
ahead.
you're still raising them. But I'm
Yes, I
saying,
am.
like,
Yes, I am.
you got them where they're pretty self-sufficient.
Yes,
You
they
don't.
are.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So now back in the workforce you go,
Okay,
right?
got it. Yes. So, maybe in the last 3 or 4 years, I kind of dabbled back into work, and it started off with I get a random phone call from a producer from a network called TV1, and they were branching into making feature movies like based on like biblical characters and modernizing them. So I got a call from the an executive there, and she said, "Hey, I remember meeting you in 1999 at Sundance when you had a short film, and I always thought to myself, one day when I'm in a position to do something, I was going to hire you to direct a movie." And true to her word, she called me to direct the movie, and I directed a movie for TV1 called To Hell and Back. And then I directed another movie right after that, based on the biblical character Ruth, and that was called For the Love of Ruth. And then that one led to my third and final movie that I directed for TV1 called the Mickey Howard. It's called Love Under New Management: The Mickey Howard Story. So that was kind of like how I segued back into directing, uh, doing TV movies. And a little bit after that, all the rage now is television. So I thought, okay, how do I navigate, meaning TV episodic directing?
Hmm.
And I thought maybe I need to try that because that seems like that's where all the work is. And so I applied for a program, and I don't believe in programs because I just feel like it's lip service for the industry to try to look like they're trying to
They're
be equitable.
diversifying or something.
Yeah, yeah. And I don't really. First of all, why do you have to work that hard? And secondly, I don't really feel that they're effective, except this one program I applied to, and it's called Female Forward, and it was started by Jen Salke when she was head of NBC Universal. And the difference with this program is if you got in, they guaranteed you an episode to direct. So it wasn't like you're shadowing. Like I'm kind of a little bit of a seasoned director in terms of obviously my body of work.
Hmm.
So shadowing ad nauseum didn't really seem like somewhere I wanted to go. But this way, they let us shadow on a show, and then you directed that show. So the show that I got was Chicago PD, and I was able to direct an episode of Chicago PD, and that really started off an episodic directing path. And now it's like I've done it all. You know, I've directed every format, every medium, all kinds of actors and all kinds of shows. So now I'm settling back into the groove of things, and um, which led me to like the last movie that I just directed was about the Clark sisters from Detroit. Shout out to Detroit. I really wanted to do that movie. Um, Mainly because I was from Detroit and I knew what the legacy of the Clark sisters meant and means to our community
Hmm.
and to those who love gospel music and profess the faith that I profess. And it just turned out that, I was able to get that movie and I shot it just recently in Toronto. And I think it's going to really showcase, particularly Maddie Moss Clark, in a very admirable and generous way. And mainly because of the tour de force performance by Anjanou Ellis. Like, she's a friggin' beast. And just watching her work and doing what she does to bring a character to life excited me as a director. And I think the two of us together created something beautiful, memorable, and quite possibly magical. And as well as a great supporting cast of women who played all the sisters in the Clark sisters family, including Karen Clark's daughter, Kiara Sheard, plays Karen Clark, and I think she pays a lovely homage to her mother and then to her grandmother and her family as a whole.
So the Clark sisters movie, they actually sang in the movie too, didn't they? The
The actors,
actresses.
the actors that I cast, I purposely went out of my way to find singers to play the Clark sisters because I just felt that it could not be an ordinary biopic where you had actors lip syncing, singing,
Hmm.
because you can't adequately honor or justify what the Clark sisters represent by having actors lip sync. So I made sure to cast real singers and help turn them into actors. And they sing their own vocals, and many times they're singing live as well throughout the movie. And honestly, like and it's all their sound was produced by Donna Lawrence, who led the Clark sisters to a Grammy or more. I don't know how many,
Uh-huh.
but I challenged Donald and I said, "Listen, this is what I want to do. I want to hire real singers. How many vocalists do I need to create the Clark sisters blend?" And we talked it through, and he was like, minimally, if you can just get three. And I pitched the three that I wanted. What if I had this person, and this person? And he was like, I think we can do it. And I was like, okay, then I'm charging you to go for it. And I'm going to try to get those singers on board. And if the network approves and we can do it, I think we will create history. And in terms of what he was able to do by producing spectacular vocals that sound so complementary to the Clark sisters sound, I think we did something that we made history.
Well, I saw some clips on Instagram from you, from Dr. Holly, I think even Donald Lawrence, and from some of the actresses, and I was just blown away. So I'm very excited. The Clark sisters will be on Lifetime, you guys, and I promise you it is well done. A lot of people have questioned, things on Lifetime, but this one is the right person did it, so it'll be good. So back to, how did you meet your husband?
Okay, so my husband, Michael Swanson, when I was going into my senior year at Shrine High School, I did a summer program in Washington, D.C., where you go there to learn about the government.
Of
So
course.
I was there from Detroit, and he was there from Chicago. And we were put in the same section or group. And I think he was immediately smitten by me. And I was like, and he was a year ahead of me in school. And, I'm a good girl from Detroit. So I'm just like, it's nice to meet you. But he was on his way to college. Like, I'm like, I can't talk to like a college person, And like, he was just so unrelenting. And we were able to stay in touch my senior year in high school. He ended up taking me to my prom. And then he was entering into his freshman year at Notre Dame. So needless to say, he recruited me to go to Notre Dame. So I went to Notre Dame, and then we dated throughout my tenure at Notre Dame. I graduated in May of '94, and we got married in July of '94. And we just
Uh-oh. You froze. Can you hear me?
Then when I was at NYU Film School, he was actually working at NBC at Rockefeller Center, working in like ad sales. And because he had access to a telephone and a fax machine, he ended up being the producer on all my short films that I made at NYU. So we just started a partnership early on, and we have been creating movies and content and babies together since 1997. And and here we are today. And
Awesome.
he has segued into television, and he is he's VP of production at NBC Universal. So he's on the TV side of it on a very high level, and I'm gradually getting back into the content side of it, hopefully on a high level, and I'll catch up with him soon enough.
Awesome sauce. So you said you did episodic, and of course I met you when you were doing Chicago PD. Now, did your episode get nominated?
Oh,
is that how it works?
Right? No. You know what? I don't think
it
got nominated for anything. However, there is a Chicago PD like fan base site that ranked my episode the best episode in out of 24 episodes in all of season 6.
Awesome. So and it was amazing.
Oh, okay.
It was.
Cool. Thank you.
And the funny thing is that I watched Chicago PD, then I fell off, and then I watched all the mashups, and then of course I watched your episodes. So I know the characters, but I don't. I can't say that I watch all the time. But the most episodes I probably have watched was in season 6. But my family, they watch.
Oh, cool.
Yes.
Cool.
And they've seen every episode. So when your episode was coming on, I had told them, hopefully they're watching, my mom, my dad particularly, but I told them that it was going to be on, and I had told them when I went to set with you and stuff, and they were like, oh, so when the little boy walked out the house, and I told him, I go, I was in the house. My dad goes, why didn't you come out? I said, because she didn't need to lose her job.
Right. Yeah.
I was like, they said action, and he ran out the door right in front of me. And they were like, my dad, and you didn't run out the house? I said, Dad, it wasn't action for me.
Right. That's funny.
It was hilarious.
They're in Detroit, your parents?
Yes, yeah. Farmington Hills, yep.
Got it.
My mother is a Mumford Mustang. Very proud.
Nice.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. So, but yeah, that was funny. I was like, and so everything, I was like, Dad, I was standing in front of the car that he's like, oh my goodness. And, they thought it was really cool. Oh, and my executive producer has just texted me. She is watching. Hi, sister. So, so that is really cool. I mean, are you going to do more episodes, especially here in Chicago?
I would love to. I'm not scheduled there yet to
Okay.
do anything. I'm actually in pre-production for
Yes.
some other secret project, so I'm a little busy right now,
Yeah,
and hopefully we'll get underway, and then I'll come back and talk about it when I have
definitely.
fabulous information to share.
Sounds like a plan. Sounds like a plan.
Hmm.
So, for anyone, because you, like you said, you do have mentees and you have students. So,
Hmm.
anyone out there that is desiring to do what you do, what is your
Hmm.
piece of advice to them?
Well, have a lot of humility, because it's not an easy business. Not that anything is easy, but this one is not easy in that nothing kind of sometimes nothing makes sense.
Hmm.
So, and you know, the people who are constantly working, it's not because they're terribly talented or not. It's like because this industry is not a meritocracy, but it is an industry based upon relationships, and it takes time to cultivate that. So I would say have a sense of humility to approach uh, people and potential mentors and working people in the industry in a way to set yourself up after you've done your work. And your work has to be the learning of the craft, the practicing of the craft. You know, when I was working on the Mariah Carey music videos, it's like I'm practicing craft, even if I'm, you know, doing it from the capacity of a PA. I'm observing the process of production and I'm taking it all in. And then on top of that, that's the technical craft that I'm trying to learn. But you have to learn the aesthetic craft, and depending on what you want to do. So if you want to do what I do, which is write and direct, you have to learn how to write. And of course, you have to learn to direct. But writing is such a fundamental part of storytelling. I feel like that's the vehicle that's going to allow you to segue into, especially television. Television is a writer's medium. Even though I was a guest director on Chicago PD, but the people who run Chicago PD are the writers and executive producers. Those
Hmm.
are the creative forces. Directors like myself and any director, mainly on television, we're more or less the story interpreters, but the storytellers are the writers.
Right.
So it really depends on what it is that you want to do and understanding what it takes to do that. So it's funny because I know directing television and you got to see a small process, a small part of it. And while it looks sexy, um, making stories and creating stories from your imagination and then seeing it come into fruition. Now that's the sexiest of all sexy, from the point of view of a creative entity like myself. So first, figure out what it is you want to do. Maybe you want to work in a camera department, you know. So there are specific steps to go into that. But if you want to create your own show, learn how to write. Okay. If you want to be a TV director, learn how to um, pretty much it's blocking and communicating and executing. And you would also have to learn how to listen to your bosses, who are typically the showrunners and executive producers, and then take ideas and implement them and do it in a timely fashion and do it with excellence. Know how to edit, know how to put a story together, um, um, aesthetically, in terms of cuts, know how to direct actors, you know, all of that. So that comes into directing, you know, and then you may just want to be an editor. That's a technical field that you get just from practicing. So the advice that I have is when you're young, try it all and then narrow it down to what it is that you feel led to do. You know what I mean? And you'll
Hmm.
know. You'll know. So maybe, you know, some people are like, maybe I'm a first AD. I really like organizing a set and bringing everybody together, and then being a leader in that capacity to help the director see her vision through. Okay, so you might be that. You might be a cinematographer, you know, but all of it is predicated on knowing like what your strengths are and what your gifts are. So just because you're directing does not mean you're a talented storyteller.
Hmm.
Okay. Um, but you could be an efficient story interpreter, and that's great too for TV shows that want to get their stories done on time and on budget. Other shows want like creative forces to help shape the way that a story is told creatively. So then you got to figure out like what kind of place is best for me. So I have for me personally, like I enjoy working with actors and crew, but I also come from a writing background, so I love creating stories beforehand, during, and afterwards. So what I say about building stories, you do it three ways. You do it in the writing, next you do it in the directing, and lastly you do it in the editing. So that is to me the full process of I would say more of a filmmaker director, and then for TV directors, like I don't write the script, so someone else does, and at the most I could weigh in on some thoughts about certain scenes, but then my job is to direct the script that I've been given, direct the actors and the crew, and then even as you go into the editing process, TV shows they have teams of editors. So sometimes by the time you get to editing, a lot of it's already put into place, and then you get to come in and shape the specifics as a director. So being a director requires so many levels of skills, and the least of which is navigating politics. That I don't want to leave that out. Don't I mean it's not the least. Actually, it's the most
Most
important.
important.
I'm just saying like that's a big part of just understanding the dynamics of different personalities on set. So I could teach a whole workshop on all of this. But did you come to my writing workshop when I did it
I
in
couldn't.
Chicago?
Oh
Okay,
wait,
okay.
no, I wasn't in town when you did it.
Oh, okay. So that's another thing. I happen to also teach screenwriting at the University of Georgia. So I just come into storytelling first as a writer director, and then as a filmmaker, and then I love applying all of that to whatever directing I do, whether I direct commercials, whether I direct documentaries, whether I direct episodic, whether I direct films. All those skill sets are applicable in whatever I do.
Awesome. And then, we cannot forget. So, uh, Erica Watson was the star of Black
Right.
Korea, which was another film
Yeah.
that you did, an
Okay.
independent film, right?
Right.
That had some Chicago ties too,
That's right. That's right. But
besides
I
Erica.
did it. Yeah, I did a short film produced by Patty Kim Gill, who is a native of Chicago. And interestingly, Patty sought me out to direct it because it was a story about a Black and Korean um, young girl who is displaced in her home and has to go to Chicago to be raised by her Black grandmother. And that's where Erica Watson
Yep.
and I initially met. She starred in that short film, and it's interesting that short film is going on. I was like, okay, let me just make this short film. Like I haven't done one in a long time, and then strangely enough, it really took off and was celebrated at a lot of film festivals, and it just really had a good run. And it was a very cathartic film for me to do personally, and I really would love to pursue uh, more storytelling in that vein that has an emotional bend to it that also shows the breadth and the depth of the colors of our community, and particularly Detroit. I'm going to come back to Detroit to do something there one day, if not sooner than later.
Thank goodness. They need it, right?
Yeah.
Um, so, and I saw Black Korea. It was great. I can't
Mhm.
remember how or where I saw it, but I saw it. Oh, I know. I saw the video. Yes.
Okay.
But I was going to say the other thing is, do you think that it's absolutely necessary for people to go to film school or to study? Or do you think there's other ways that they can get this knowledge and then be successful?
You absolutely do not have to go to film school.
Okay.
And I find that increasingly a lot of, especially like there's so much television going on now that I don't meet a lot of TV directors who went to film school. Like now, a lot of TV directors are people from the crew. A lot of actors are directing television, and the beautiful thing about that is they bring a wealth of experience from having been on the other side of the camera.
Mm-hmm.
They understand the nature of the beast when it comes to the television medium. So it seems like, a natural progression for a lot of actors to direct television. So I have seen people who started out as script supervisors now directing television, first ADs. So pretty much everybody on set who's in a crew position is angling to direct television. So, and a lot of them come up from being on the crew. So I think the key is somehow get on that set and
Work your way up.
work your way up, as with everything else.
Mm-hmm.
Now it's and listen, I have an 18-year-old son who has an idea. He goes out, he shoots it, he comes home, he edits it, and it's on YouTube that same night. So the sky is the limit, like, right? So you don't know. This is before, and he's in film school now.
Now,
Before,
right.
Yeah, before film school, he was doing this constantly. So I think technology has really made storytelling through the visual medium more accessible. And if you're talented in terms of having great ideas and knowing how to execute them, then go for it.
That makes sense to me. I actually, it's just so funny. I have this 24/7 channels, and so one of them is ER. So I've been watching ER for months, 24/7. Like that's my background while I'm working. And I was looking up an episode and wanted to see some character because I was like, I know she was on something else. But what I also read was that several of the characters that had left the show ended up coming back as directors.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I didn't know that. And I was like, wow, who knew? Because I do know for Grey's Anatomy, I know Chandra Wilson has actually done quite a few episodes of that show and stuff. And I had no idea ER was doing the same thing. But most people don't know Eric LaSalle is the executive producer of Chicago PD. And the funny way I found that out was I was at a concert in Chicago and he was sitting in front of me. And I was like, you guys, that's Peter Benton. And they were like, what? And I go, didn't you watch ER? And they're like, oh, yeah. I go, Coming to America. And they're like, oh, yeah. I was like, look. And so then I think I told somebody and they go, oh, he's the EP of Chicago PD. I said, no, I had no idea.
Who is that?
Eric LaSalle.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. I had no clue. I saw it and I was like, oh, so that's why he was obviously sitting. Like I said, he was at a concert. He was sitting in front of us at the concert. And I was like, why is he in Chicago at this concert? And, so that is, you're right. A lot of the actors I'm seeing now, I pay attention to the credits and I'm like, oh, wow, such and such did that. Yeah. So that's really cool. And someone told me that there are so many different outlets out there now. Everyone needs content.
Yeah.
And so if you just go do it, you never know what can happen.
That's one way to approach it. Yes. I mean, what can happen is you starve, but I think every great artist has to have those hungry years. So go invest and bank on yourself, especially if you're young. And I always tell people like, oh, I don't know if I have time to do to focus on writing or doing something. And I'm like, well, one, you don't want it bad enough. And two,
right.
I'm like, well, how many kids do you have? Well, I don't have any kids. I'm like, you have all the time in the world. I don't have time,
Right.
But I get stuff done still. And I have 4 kids. You have no kids and you don't have time. I don't think that equation works.
And that, like you said, they don't want it bad enough because if you want it bad enough, you'll work for free. And you'll do what you have to do to get it done. You hear about, and it's not a joke, people literally do film movies on their iPhones.
listen, I have heard of that and I've seen some, but I'm not, I don't judge your
Right.
capacity to work for nothing. That's up to you. Certainly we've all had to do it. So I don't know if you're hungry enough. It's like if you have the stamina and you want to do this, then there are some steps that you have to take that are going to be extraordinary. And that
I
happens.
did a networking workshop and I talked about how you have to also, when the opportunities come to you, and it could be the most randomest opportunity, you walk into New York City and you walk into an elevator with it could be Spike Lee, like you said. Spike Lee came to your school your
Right.
freshman year. You have to take that opportunity. I saw Melody Hobson speak to an organization I was a part of,
Mm.
and when she left, I got up to walk out the door with her, and I told her I would
Oh,
like to be the medical version of you on Good Morning America. And she
man.
said, "We'll talk to my assistant." And I honestly didn't believe her, but she was serious. Her assistant literally got in touch with me. She set up the call and we spoke. And Melody's like,
Oh,
"You know how to
wow.
reach me now. Anything, you have any other questions, concerns, whatever." And so every time that I do things, I always send it to her assistant. Her assistant emails me back and she says, "Oh, I showed Melody. I told Melody." And when I've seen Melody, around town, she remembers and she's like, "I see that you've been doing this and you're doing that." I was like, "Thank you." But you have to take the opportunities. You can't, sit there and, "Oh, well, it'll happen." No, it won't necessarily happen again. If that's the opportunity, you never know. That is your opportunity. Hurry up and
Right.
have your 30-second pitch ready.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm always pitching stories to whoever is listening, but who can actually do something.
Right. Yeah.
So,
And I
there's
mean,
that.
like, for your students, though, I think that it's important that people take advantage of, if you see someone, you need to have that 30-second pitch, because they, those kind of jobs always need some free labor of some sort. Like you said, it could be picking up the garbage, what I mean, cleaning up the set, whatever. But you never know what you could learn just by being in that atmosphere.
Wow.
So,
Well, that's one way to look at it. Yeah.
yeah. So I just always encourage students to please don't humble yourself and
Yeah.
make sure that you offer something instead of always asking people to help you. Make sure you're helping them.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And, as a parent of four kids, it's really trying to break that sense of entitlement in a generation that have things handed to them. And it's not even about material wealth. Um, I don't care how poor you are in this country, like, and not to uh, poo poo like people who are struggling, but I lived in India, and running water is a premium, you
Right.
know, and I'm just saying, like, in many ways that there are opportunities for people, especially in this industry, that is, however hard it is, which is why we have to have sometimes diversity programs, but it's really at a certain point can be democratic when it comes to talent and the right time. And I just love the opportunities that can be presented, because if you have something that you can get eyeballs on, somebody's going to try to make money off of it, and that may be an opportunity for you. I don't want to oversimplify the process, because I'm
Right.
not saying it's easy, but at the same time, if you have a gift of poetry and you just turn it into rapping, maybe you're like a Kanye West.
Mm-hmm.
And technologically speaking, you can produce a track now for not so much money. So it's it's democratic in ways that I appreciate, and it'll this whole industry has allowed me an opportunity to be a creative entity, um, in a way that's realized and not just dreamed about. So it is possible, and like in my story is by God's grace,
Right.
it's extremely possible, and I still marvel at what God has brought me through and brought me to.
And I always say prayer changes things, so you got to pray.
Mhm.
But if you work, hard work really does pay off in the end. It might take you a long time to see it, or if you look hard enough, you'll actually see the little payoffs along the way. but
True.
hard work does pay off.
I'm just
And
like, that goes without saying. The assumption is you have to go hard. I mean, that's just, I say that to my children. Like, that's that's what you bring to the table first and foremost, the hard work, and you keep at it. And then, then opportunities when it meets hard work, what do they call that? Luck, you know?
yes, you're right, right.
So yeah, let's aim for luck, but
Operation
everybody needs to work
opportunity
hard.
meets preparation is luck.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yep.
yeah, definitely.
Amen.
Yes. So let me see. Do you have a favorite quote or scripture?
Hmm. I do. Where was it? It's funny. Yeah, but I can't find it, and I don't memorize well these days. But uh, well, I'll come back to that.
Okay.
I'll come back to that.
Okay.
Well,
So
okay. I'll tell you what. This is one I quote all the time with my children. And I think it's attributed to a basketball player. And I'm sorry, Lord, I can't think of the scripture, but it's who's the basket? Maybe you'll know it. Hard work beats talent when talent doesn't work hard.
yes, I've heard that. Yes.
Who said that? The
I don't
guy
know.
who plays used to be on Golden State and was just traded to Brooklyn, and he tore his Achilles.
Okay, so
Oh, my
I'm
kids are
not the
gonna
sports
kill me.
person,
Okay, go
but
ahead, go ahead. Okay,
I might get a text
Kevin
message from Kevin
Durant.
Durant. Okay.
There you go. There you
Okay.
go. Yes, yes.
Okay.
I have to quote that to my children a lot because I have some talented children, but I don't care. I would love to put them hard work, work that talent. So there.
Yeah. And I always say I might not be the smartest one in the room, but I'll be the hardest working. So that,
Yeah. But
yeah.
can I just say this too? Like, it's kind of like a realization that I had because I believe sometimes people who think they work hard have an entitlement mentality too. And when because I work in a creative industry, I have to say like those elements of hard work beating talent, that's true. But sometimes um, in a creative industry, you got to let the creative people do what they do. And that just because you work hard or what have you does not mean you have the creative ability to do what's required to do. So I have run into that a lot. And this is what I say when managing the politics of this industry. You just got to figure out who you're talking to. And if they're your boss, how do you navigate these types of discussions? You know? So again, I just bring this up because I just had this experience. Like, it's like I'm a creative person. I happen to work very hard. So that's not in question, right? But I have run against or worked with some hardworking people who hire creative people like me and then want to do my job. And then I sit back, I'm like, is this your best? Is this your best? And is this what you want? Because I think you hired me to do what I do, and to me, it's not just hard work. It's like, can we balance that hard work with intelligence and common sense? So that means learning how to collaborate. So I've already said I'm listening to you. That is me collaborating. But ultimately, trust the process. And because we're talking about what I do for a living and it's filmmaking, I don't cut people's hearts open. Okay. I don't want the most creative person cutting my heart open. All right. I want I want a hard worker, but I want the person who is experienced and skilled in doing just that. And
Right.
I will not give you my opinion if I don't know how to operate on a heart, you know? So let the experts do what they do well. And a lot of what is important in this industry is that it is a collaborative medium, and we have got to listen to others and implement the best ideas. But there's a reason why a director is called a director. All right. She is the leader of this creative process as it pertains to films. Remember, I told you television is a
Different.
writer's
Yeah.
medium. So
Yeah.
the boss of a TV show is the showrunner. So that is different. I acquiesce to a showrunner because that's your show,
Hmm.
right? On a film, uh, filmmaking and movies, that's a director's medium. And, it's, I need a lot of different people to do what I do well. And typically, I have great relationships with crew because I have held every friggin'
Job.
job on a crew. So I understand intuitively what your job is. So my job as a director is to help you do your job well, and your job as the boom operator is to help me look good doing what you do well, and then we can all get along and create. I always aim to create magic, So I'm like, let's go. We're creating magic. And if you love this as much as I love this, and if you get to work with me, we're going to have fun doing this. And we are going to celebrate each other in the process of creating magic. So, and if it's not that, then it's work.
Right.
And sometimes some jobs are work
Our work. Right.
too, but most times how I approach directing and storytelling and filmmaking, it's a passion. And I love what I do. And I love working with the people that I get to work with doing what I do.
So would you see yourself having some huge production company like 40 Acres and a Mule? Um, or, what do you see? Like, do you see yourself, like, where do you see yourself going besides doing your secret project? Where do you see yourself?
Well, I already have a production
I
company
know.
like 40 Acres and a Mule. I mean, the operative word I think was huge, but I dare say it's where it needs to be right now. And I started it in 1997 with my husband. It's called Faith Filmworks. It's not religiously affiliated. It's called Faith Filmworks because that has been the journey of my life. My whole participation, not only in this industry but in the world as a human being, has been predicated on faith, not just in God, but faith in myself and faith in God's timing to orchestrate things in the way that He does, and then knowing how to step out and walk in faith to do what I do. So everything that I've ever done required some modicum of faith, and it's never returned to me void. Not to get biblical, but but why not? It's just the operative word here. And every endeavor that I step into, a lot of times, like I don't know how it's gonna end,
Hmm.
and it's a scary thing. Like a lot of people want to know, like if one plus one is two, then two plus two is four, right? No, it's not like that. Some things that I've been working on, right? And that's almost like over a year. And I can start off with an idea, and it could take years before it manifests into the realization. And I feel like God is telling me now that's what the faith walk is. That's what the journey is. And sometimes I only know in hindsight, like, wow, how did we get here when I could not foresee what the next steps were, you know? So
Hmm.
I feel like very much a part of what I do is I get paid to dream, but I have bona fide skill sets with an MFA in filmmaking that allows me to put pieces in place to make those dreams a reality. But even then, that's not enough because you have to mix in time, you have to mix in struggle, you have to mix in goodwill from others, you have to mix in sometimes good luck, but we define what luck was.
Right.
Then and then you have to walk the walk, however long it takes, and then don't give up on your dream until it manifests. Now, who's willing to do all of that? Like, listen, in hindsight, I'm like, what? It's really, why did I choose this? But every time a dream manifests, I know that there's nothing else I want to do, and I know on some level, I feel led to do it in a way that I can also share the process with others and bring them into the journey so they can now have a dream and fulfill it, but knowing with a certain understanding that there's a process that takes place. And I can speak to that because Lord knows I have lived it over and over and over again. And I'm always up for another battle all the time. So, and like I said, you will come back with a follow up interview and we'll talk about
Yep.
that first seed of the idea. Remember, I'm like, Renee, what if I did this? What do you think about that? And then the funny thing is, I love using you as a springboard. Did I ever tell you why, though?
No.
Okay. Well, one, I love the fact that you're from Detroit. So to me, we're kindred spirits, right? But you're such that girl who watches everything, right? And like you're pretty much you're my target audience. I've never
Okay.
told you that, right?
Mm-mm.
So
No.
that's why I would just run things by you. What do you think if I cast this actor? Remember,
Right.
I would just ask
Uh-huh.
her,
Yeah.
and you'd be like, "Oh, yeah, I like him." I'm like, "Well, what about him?" Why? You're my target audience.
And
You're
you know
that
what? She
black
sent me
girl.
scripts, and when I used to act, which a lot of people don't know, that's the only time I ever read scripts. When I was memorizing lines, I never read a script like that. And before it had been something, and I was like, oh my goodness. And I was like, I have to sit down and take time to read this. And I was like, this was actually good because I don't sit and read. I do audiobooks. So for the fact that I sat and read something on paper, I was like, well, it must have been good because it didn't put me to sleep. And I think I texted you and told you that. I was like, I didn't fall asleep.
I'm like, thank you.
But
no,
yeah,
so I like to just test things out with real people. So you're like a real person, like not in the industry per se, and and that's why I used you as my test case.
But I told you this before, I want you to write some Hallmark movies because I love my Hallmark movies. They just lack color. And they're doing a little bit better. They've been,
sure.
The young man from Scandal, Cornelius, is from Detroit. He was actually the star of one of the wedding ones this summer.
Okay.
And they had a Christmas one with Tia Mowry last year. And they we get a little spot here and there. Kim Fields was on one. And, Holly Robinson Pete has the whole series on Hallmark movies and mysteries. But they need more. And I love my Hallmark movies. I love them. They just don't have black people.
I'm going to tell you something. Who else loves them are my kids.
Really?
Every time I'm like, what are you watching? Hallmark? I'm like, oh, okay. They love Hallmark movies. So apparently, like, y'all need to start hashtag
something
Hallmark,
right,
and get it out there and say we want representation.
Because so I have other friends that write, and I'm like, why don't you write something and send it to Hallmark? Like, come on, because these are people that watch it too, and I'm like, don't complain I said, I don't have that skill, so I can't really do that. I'll publicize your movie once you did it, but I can't.
Right.
I can't do that. But if I had it, I would, because I think the Hallmark movies are so great. And yes, they're predictable. And yes, I know what's going to happen 5 minutes in. But that's the beauty of it. We're excited. We love it.
Okay. We clearly have different tastes. However, I understand that Hallmark love. Absolutely.
Yeah.
And
I just like happy movies.
Hey, I do too.
Yeah.
I just go about telling them a little bit differently.
Yes, right.
But that said, that's a real brand that is powerful.
Right.
And especially in the Swanson household.
Okay, so my EP is giving me the hook. But everyone, please, where can we follow you, Christine?
I'm C Swanson 44 across all platforms.
So you can check her out there. And of course, you can follow me at Ask Dr. Renee. And next week, we'll have a wonderful guest. And if you just follow me on social media, you'll get to see who it is. And that's it, and that's all. Thank you so much, everyone, for watching. And I will see you next week.
All right, take care, Renee.
Thank you. Hi, it's Dr. Renee, and I am here in New York City at the Thinks Speaks headquarters. If you don't know, Thinks are the period panties. Here's a pair of Thinks, but these are the exact ones I have on today. And Speaks are pee panties. So I came today to shoot some videos and have a good time. I am one of the Thinks leaders, which is code word for brand ambassador. And I've been in the program now for a year. They actually started the program with me and several others last year. We are killing it because we are trying to change the narrative and have menstrual equality. So if you don't know, Thinks caters to everyone that's menstruating. So of course, you have young people that menstruate too, right? So these are between. So these are for people just starting their periods. So between comes in really cool colors. They have one print, I think it's like strawberries or something. So real cute stuff for young people. And these are the cute little boxes they come in. And so you can go to my website and you can get between shethinks.com/Renee, shethinx.com/RENEE, and you get $10 off. So if you go there, we have a know your flow chart so you can figure out how many pairs you need and which ones you need, because like this, the between will hold about 2 tampons worth. But let me tell you, this company is so amazing. If you let them know you think that they need to have bigger, better, whatever, they're gonna listen. Because if you don't know, we have a new Thinks product that came out that I'll tell you about later. Between comes in right now 2 tampons worth, but stay tuned. Could be more very soon. And this is the cute little packaging. And it's just, this is a great way for your young lady to be comfortable with getting her period, because maybe she's the only one in her class, or maybe dad does not want to go to the store and buy tampons and pads. You can order these online, have them shipped to the house, and there's the embarrassment gone. Single dads, I'm thinking about you. Between is a great way to go. And you can just buy a cycle set of 3, $10 off. And there is a money back guarantee if they don't work out, but I'm telling you, I'm almost absolutely positive they will. They are so comfortable that I know young ladies that actually wear these just because, not even on their period, just because they're so comfy. Definitely check them out. And Between comes in different sizes and colors, so if in styles, so definitely check them out. This is the bikini style. So we have other styles you can see on the site, and of course it tells you how to care for them. If she's not quite washing clothes yet, here's how to care for them.